Welcome into Pritches Get Stitches. For this week's episode, we decided to split it into two parts as we discuss the intricacies of making friends as we get older. This is part one of this episode, and we hope you enjoy the show and can gain some insight as Holly and I discuss some of the struggles we've had and how her many hours of research can help us become better friends. Thanks for being here and enjoy. Hey, welcome back in. We're glad you're here with us. Glad you found us again. If you're back, if you're here for the first time, glad you're here. Holly, I gotta go to this right away. The other day you sent me a picture. I was getting ready for bed. It's at night and you have a bloody finger. Like, what the heck?
So I was getting ready for bed as well. And I go to pull off my sock, which it's like, the no-show sock. And I pull off my sock and I feel like a sharp something, but I don't know what it is. And I look down and there's blood running down my finger because I've somehow cut my finger, but I don't know what I cut it on or how I cut it. There's like nothing sharp on the sock. I'm not near any sharp objects. There's literally nothing. And so I have to draw the conclusion that when I was pulling off my sock, I somehow used my fingernail to cut my finger and draw blood.
I mean, classic,
Correct.
Par for the course. You can't even take a sock off without hurting ourselves.
Correct.
Okay, so your sock, your fingernail, Pritch slapped you.
Correct. Blood down my finger. Had to put a Band-Aid on. So here we go.
Sheesh. Okay. That's, just straight up something that would happen to us. Can't even, socks are dangerous. My daughter, just classic Lexi, who's my 14-year-old, they've been listening to the show. They've listened to it a few times and they're just as excited as we are about this deal. And we were standing there. She was talking to my wife and she goes to turn the corner into our room and stubs her toe.
Oh, of course.
On the door.
Classic.
As she's turning the corner, she stubs her toe and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, I just got Pritch slapped." So it's classic, our family. But it's good to know that it has moved to the next generation.
And generations to come, this will be like generational trauma.
Yeah. So right now, for us, we blame it all on Dad because he's the clumsy one. And it came to me and now it's going to her and she's going to blame it on me to her kids. And it is what it is. But Lexi, she comes by it honestly. She's probably the clumsiest one in our family. She had a bruise on her arm one day. I'm like, where'd you get that? She's like, I ran into a door. Of course you did.
Yeah, of course he did. Of course he did. Probably as she was walking through the doorway.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. She's like, it's a big old bruise. She's like,
yeah,
just my life, right?
Yeah, happens often.
She's the only one that's, had a cast, had crutches. No joke. Lexi loves it though. As a kid, her biggest dream, I'm not even kidding. Her biggest dream was to be in a wheelchair, at a hospital. She wanted to be at the hospital in a wheelchair. And so her appendix, she had appendicitis and she was in the wheelchair getting rolled out and just was ecstatic.
Wow.
Just loved it. Her dream came true. All her American Girl dolls all have they had wheelchairs, they had casts, they had crutches. That's what she wanted for these girls. American Girl.
Wow.
Oh,
that's pretty awesome.
She comes by and honestly just loves to be clumsy, I guess. So, and all that.
She loves being clumsy or loves maybe the attention that comes with being clumsy.
She likes attention. So maybe the attention of that. Yeah. She's the one who told me she couldn't see very well. Hey Dad, I'm sitting in the back of the car and I can't see the radio in the front. Okay, maybe you need to get your eyes checked. And, go in, take her in. She has perfect vision. The doctor's like, wait, why did you want to have this checked? She's like, I was like, she just said she couldn't see. She's like, well, she has perfect vision. So we go to the car. I'm like, Lexi, I paid my $25 for the copay. And I'm like, Lexi, what the heck? She's like, I just wanted glasses.
How old was she?
Oh, she was probably first grade, second grade.
Oh, wow.
And so it's hard for me to gauge how sick she really is. Cause I'm like, how sick are you? But
right. Uh-oh.
yeah, love my Lexi. Love her though. She's great. So anyways, Holly, moving on from the clumsiness and the pritch slapping. What do you got today? What are you drinking?
Today I decided to take a little bit of a cue from you and be boring. But I am drinking just boring water from my Hydro 100,000 meters swag. I told you last episode that I rode 1,000,000 miles, or I'm sorry, 1,000,000 meters in 3 months. That wasn't an exaggeration. So Hydro will give you like swag along the way, right, or, certain milestones. And so my first swag was 100,000 meters. And then they sent me this in the mail and it was like, what? I get in shape and free swag. So then, of course, that was also motivating. Keep going.
Do you ever put anything in there other than water?
No. I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could use it for like beer, wine. I mean, it keeps it really, really cold. And metal always keeps everything cold. So now you're making me think about this. Like, interesting. When I go places, people will think it's water because it's hydro and I can pretend I'm in, being healthy, but really it's like swigging some beer, sneaking something in somewhere.
Yeah. So isn't vodka clear? So you could actually put some of that in there.
Correct. I mean, rum is also clear, but I could put a lot of things in there that I really want if I really wanted to. I mean, how do you know this is really water?
That I don't know. However, I heard one time that one of the things that has the most bacteria is a water bottle.
Probably. That's why I normally drink out of plastic water bottles. But your daughter always gives me crap for drinking out of plastic water bottles. So I'm trying to be more health conscious or eco-friendly, I guess. But I just don't see this lasting very long because the fact that I have to hand wash this every time I use it, it's kind of a pain. So I'll probably go back to.
I'll be honest, like I don't wash my water bottle every time. So it's probably full of lovely bacteria.
Yeah, but you don't wash it anytime because you've got children who do that.
Well, that's true.
You just stick it in the sink and then it's magically washed.
But I don't know if they do it either. It's the problem.
They do. Well, I know at least one of them does because every time I see her doing the dishes, she's got all the water bottles lined up.
Must be Ava. She's the good dishwasher.
Correct. Is Ava.
Well, I stayed with the water today. I did not bring the lemon apple cider vinegar to the show today.
Took a cue from you. Water, boring. Here we are together being boring.
Yes, boring on our drinks, but boring life, not so much. You talk about it, you're like, oh, it's so boring of a life, but I'm all over the place, man. Like all day, even when we were prepping for the show and you were like, hey, Scott, can I, let me come over tonight and we'll talk about the show. And I was like, yeah, here's the thing. Like, I don't have time. Like, our listeners probably don't know this yet, but I am a process server by trade. That's what I do. So I serve court paper. So that day was like, hey, I've got to serve all these papers and I'm out and about. And then, oh, it's Wednesday. So now I've got football practice and then I've got church stuff with the kids. And then by the time I get home, it's 8:30 or 9 o'clock and the boring one's in bed at that point. It's you, I think. Aren't you kind of winding down by then?
Usually I start winding down about 9 o'clock. I'm probably in bed a lot of nights by, between 9 and 9:30, but, sometimes I stay up later.
Okay.
Doesn't happen often. If I'm going out or hanging out with people, but I mean, I don't know, it's just, I don't know. And the sad thing is I have insomnia. So it's not even like I'm going to bed to go sleep for, a whole bunch of hours. So I just go in and lay in bed and then I just lay there. But, a long time ago, my doctor told me that I needed to get at least 8 hours of rest. Even if I'm not sleeping, I need to go lay down. And since my body naturally is awake every morning between 3 and 4, and then I'm just awake, I try to go lay down by about 9 so that I'm at least getting some. It's not quite 8 hours.
Not sleep, but
right.
Rest, like your body's
but rest. Yeah. So
sound like mom. She's awake every day at 2 o'clock.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know that there was ever a time where I woke up that mom wasn't awake. Like
no, when you And I don't know if you ever snuck out because you were pretty goody two shoes, but you always had to sneak out like between 11 and 12 because mom would usually be in bed, usually around 10. So you had to sneak out between like 11 and 12 and be back usually by like between 3 and 4 because, 4 was typically that golden hour, like between 4 and 4:30. So you couldn't really sneak out and go anywhere good. You had to kind of stick around the house or in Colleen because you had to be home in time before mom woke up.
Yeah, she was up at the crack of the newspaper hitting the door kind of a thing.
I say before the crack of dawn for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Holly, today's show, we talked about it last time and we actually want to have a theme for the show today. And that theme that we talked about was, you and I were getting older.
Right.
You're getting older faster than I'm getting older, but
right.
One thing that we're talking about, you recently moved here to the Dallas area. And so you're having to kind of foster some relationships that are new. Because how many people did you know here?
You guys, I have maybe one or two other friends that kind of live in the greater Dallas area, but married with children. So it's like, I don't know, like one's like 45 minutes away and, I don't know, the other's far away. And it seems like every time I'm like, hey, let's get together. It's, oh, well, we've got, date night tonight or the kids have something going on. So it's like, I've got to meet some friends who either like don't have kids or whose kids are grown up, or if they're coupled, they're in a situation where they can go out and do things without, the spouse or the girlfriend or the boyfriend.
Right. So we want to talk today because you have realized doing this, kind of how difficult it is to make friends.
Way difficult. A lot harder now than it was when I was little. That is for even in my 20s.
Yeah. So with that, that's kind of the theme of the show. And I'm looking over our show notes here and you have a fun fact of the day that kind of correlates with our theme today.
Right. So, after last week's show, I was kind of thinking about, the fun fact and how I wanted it to tie into whatever we're talking about. And so last Sunday when I was at your house and, doing dinner, somehow it came up a conversation that Ava hates the sound of music. But it was also...
I made them watch it one time and they wanted to stab their eyes out. Just Ava.
I love it. It's like, literally my all-time number one favorite movie. I have everything memorized, the songs. I can rattle off the dialogue. I mean, everything. It's all-time favorite. No joke. Seriously mean that. So Ava was in the kitchen doing dishes. She had a huge stack to start. So I was like, hey, Ava, guess what we're going to watch? And I turned on.
That's like you, though. Like,
correct.
So, hey, I hate this. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do. You hate it and I like it.
Right. So I turned on The Sound of Music. And, at the beginning of the movie, kind of towards the beginning, when Maria goes to meet Captain Von Trapp and the children, there's a scene where the captain is going to call the children down to introduce them to Maria. And they live in a huge house.
Right.
So he has this whistle that he whistles this sound. And then she like all of a sudden starts hearing running and doors slamming. And, then she like falls back and she sees all the children on the second story lined up. And then he does these other whistles and they start marching down the stairs based upon his whistle.
Right. And
he does all these other little things. And based on the little whistle, they like turn, they stop, they do all these different things. Right.
Yep. I remember that. I remember we had a brother-in-law back in the day that I think he whistled. His kids had knew the whistle.
Did.
He would whistle and then they would be like, Tyler.
Right.
Right.
Based on whichever whistle it was. So,
yes.
I have to believe he got that from Sound of Music as much as he used to talk crap about it. But anyway, that scene made me think of today's fun facts because you always make fun of me for being super nerdy. And one thing I do.
You are. You literally said you want to go back to school because you like to learn. I mean, that's like nerd alert,
I think I'm not the only one who would want to go back to school to learn. I feel like there's other people like me out there.
But you can learn from Wikipedia. That's where I learned.
But here's the whole thing. It's like you learn from Wikipedia. I don't know. I need to see my grades. I need to know that I got the highest grade in the class. Like I wrote a paper. I got a perfect score.
Right.
Like everything's a competition, school included. Okay. So anyway, back to the fun fact. This is actually a fun fact that I read, I don't even know, a long time ago. and I keep a list of, or a document, I guess, of like interesting things that I read. I don't know, like a fun fact list.
Because you never know. You never know. One day you may start a podcast, and it's the fun fact of the day podcast with Holly.
True story. So this was one that I remembered, that dolphins, dolphins are smart creatures.
Yeah.
And so researchers had done some studies with, dolphins on different things. And during the course of another study, they realized that dolphins actually have a system of whistling to recognize other people within their pod. So it's like, if there was a dolphin named Scott, that would be associated to a specific whistle. And if members of the pod want to talk to Scott,
that would be the best whistle. So the best whistle would be that one.
Okay. Well, either way, they would whistle that sound, and then Scott, to let the other dolphins of the pod know that he heard them, he whistles his name back. And so it's like all the friends know each other's names within the pods, and then they can introduce, like if they come upon other pods with other dolphins, they introduce themselves to friends using the whistles. And there you go. I mean, it's a true story.
Does their mom, the mom dolphin, give them the whistle name?
I didn't get into that. I guess now I feel like I need to do some additional research on this, though. So
how do they get the whistle? How many whistles are there? Unlimited whistles, or there maybe, hey, there's 2 Scotts in this pod, so this is how are we going to do that?
That's a good question.
How do they differentiate?
Good question. I'm gonna have to research that and get back with you.
So in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if I want to share this with you, but
please share it.
My wife and I whistle at each other too. So my wife and I whistle to find each other while we're at the store. Let's just put it that way.
Stop it.
So
no, you don't.
Yeah. So if we're at the grocery store.
Hold up. I've been with you guys before and never experienced this. Is this like a hidden thing that you knew I would make fun of you for?
Most likely. That's why I didn't want to share it here.
Wow.
But, maybe we never lost each other. But if we're at the store, we can't find each other. We put out a whistle. And so I'll whistle out. I'm looking for Val, and I'll put out this whistle at it. And the microphone's not gonna pick up the whistle, but it's like, woo woo. That's what it sounds like.
So it's like a pretty lady's walking by, but you're looking for Val and you do that. She's thinking you're hitting on her because it's like the whistle that everybody's like, woo woo.
Not really, because that one's exactly like you just said. That's like woo woo. This is like wee woo, and it's just a quick whistle. And then I wait for the whistle back. And so
hold up. You whistle and she repeats the whistle back to you.
Yeah, that's how we find each other.
Wow.
So she could be 2 aisles over, and I whistle and she whistles back.
What if she's a long ways away? You just walk through the store whistling?
Basically. Yeah. So I'll go and I'll whistle and I don't hear anything. And then I'll whistle. But it really gets confusing when she whistles back and I can't tell where it's coming from. And then I'm like, wait, which direction is that? Where is it? So yeah. So we walk through the store and whistle. I mean, because let's be real. I don't know if it's a mom thing or if it's a woman thing or what, but I just remember as a kid, going with mom to the grocery store, and she'd be like, hey, go 1 aisle over and get bread. And so I'd walk 1 aisle over, and literally I'm back in 36 seconds. And somehow in that time, she's transported 43 aisles. I don't know what she did, but she's 43 aisles away. That happens today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, or my wife, she'll be like, hey, or me, whatever. I'll just be like, hey, go to over here and get this, but I've got to go over there. And then I got to find her. And Walmart's big, and Kroger's big, all these places are big, and I can't find her. So I start whistling. And
my gosh.
And she does the same. And then we whistle, we find each other just like dolphins, right? But probably the best part of this, there's a better part.
Hold up. There's a better part of this story. Okay, please.
I don't maybe it's a married thing. I don't know. Maybe we can put that on the poll, put it on the Twitter poll or the socials. If you can't find your spouse in the store, do you whistle for them?
You could just text them, or you could text them. You could call them.
Well, that's the difference between you and me and my wife. We would have our phones and we would answer the phone immediately, but my wife doesn't always answer the phone. Sometimes it's in her
Fair point.
She just never gets it. I'm like, where are you? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So one day, we're not together, but we're at the store, and Val hears a whistle. So she whistles back, and she turns the corner and realizes that it's not me whistling, because then the guy whistled again. It's not there was another couple, and Val's like, oh my gosh, I thought you were my husband. We have the same whistle. And he's like, yeah, me and my wife, we find each other by whistling. So yeah,
Be like, this has got to be like a suburbia thing. Is this like a,
I don't know. Like we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the listeners say. But we have a whistle just like these dolphins in order to find each other in the store.
I've been coupled up, married, boyfriends, and I've never once used a whistle to find somebody who I've lost, like in a store. So I don't know. And then again, I will say, like, I'm a terrible whistler. Like, I whistle very quietly. Like when I'm in the car listening to music and I'm whistling along to the song, I'm not even sure anybody else in the car can hear the whistle, but I can hear it like in my mind. So that's probably, I'm guessing, like maybe my spouse is, I don't know, like they're remarried. So maybe they whistle with their current, but maybe they were like, she can't whistle. So this is pointless.
Yeah. I don't know. We just kind of came up with that. I'm like, hey, if I can't find you, whistle. And then if we can't find each other, it's like, just go to electronics. You'll find me there. Like that's our safe spot. Like, where do we go? Our safe spot is electronics. Yeah, but you mentioned whistling in the car. That's something else. Like some people are like, that's so weird that you whistle in the car. Like why? Like literally. No,
I don't just whistle. I whistle the songs. It could be like rap song, like country song, DMX, whatever.
DMX is on there and we're whistling.
And I'm just whistling along.
Yep. Yeah. And so people
sing or hum.
People have said that's kind of weird because a lot of people will sing or hum or whatever, but we whistle thanks, I think, to mom. I know mom's probably listening. So thanks for whistling to every song on Simply Beautiful 91.3.
Right. We're kids. Now we all do it.
Yes. So that's another poll question. Do you whistle the song while you're in the car? Another question to put up on the poll. Yeah. So whistling's kind of an important part of my life. That's how I'm able to keep track of my wife and she keeps track of me. So
then I guess that was a really good fun fact of the day to bring in.
Yeah.
Dolphins and Scott and Val whistling away.
I think a lot of spouses do. I'd be surprised if there weren't more that do that. At least two. I know of us and that other couple randomly that whistled. So anyways, so good. So fun fact of the day. Very, very interesting. Brought up some fun
good stories for sure.
All right. So Holly, making friends, like before we get into this, like right now in your current situation, you've been in Dallas area, you're up in the Frisco area. I'm a little further north, little town called Prosper. So a little shout out to Prosper, Texas. For those listening here. Yes, it is suburbia. It's fastest growing school district in Texas, just FYI. A lot of people moving here. So how many friends right now? You've been here since, I don't know when you moved here, September, October. Right. You kind of started coming out. How many friends do you have that you've kind of fostered over that time frame where you could be like, hey, this is my friend that lives close. You know what I mean?
Right. So, I have a lot of friends who I've had for years and years and years, and I talk to them pretty daily, most of them on a daily basis. But like we talked at the beginning, I just have a couple that live up here, and it's just been so hard to find friends up here. And coming here from Utah, I was in a situation up there where I just really struggled the whole time I was up there, friendships or otherwise. It's kind of a weird microcosm up there of Utah. Not that they're, don't want to turn anybody off who lives there and loves it. It just wasn't for me.
Well, I mean, you didn't fit the typical live in Utah person though, right? Right.
100%. So when I moved down here, I wanted to make an effort to make friends. And so I had in my mind all of these great ideas of how I was going to meet people. And it just kind of didn't happen. I just thought like, hey, I'll be going out places. I'll run into people. I'll meet people that way. I don't know, I just thought it would be different.
Go to the bar across the street from your house.
Thought I'd go there, meet people,
That didn't pan out.
It's like, I would come here randomly to this bar, maybe like once a week, but every time, it didn't matter what day I went, like the people that I were talking to were there. And, I like to go out, but it's not like a daily thing. But then I realized for a lot of these people that I was talking to, like, this is a daily thing for them. And just not necessarily what I wanted to do on a daily basis. So it's like, well, I don't want to get my number to these people. I don't want to be friends with these. So, I would say that, right now I have met and maintained friendships with 3 new people from here that I met after I moved here.
And we'll talk about how you met those people. But as you get into, as you did the research on this, and this is probably, like you said earlier, you have a document full of all your research.
I do. So, okay. So I'm not going to lie.
How long ago did you do this research is the question.
Oh man, I started researching this probably like 3 or 4 years ago when I lived in Utah, where I was like, I had just gone through my divorce. I didn't have really any friends up there. I had one friend, Danielle. She's my hairdresser, and that kind of, she became, one of my close friends because she would do my hair. But otherwise, I really didn't have any friends up there. And I'm like,
so what you did, you said, hey, I don't have any friends to go out with.
I researched.
And so I'm going to research why I don't have friends to go out with.
So I researched, like, first it was the question was like, why is it so hard to make friends? And then I started to realize, like, this is like a hugely researched topic that as adults, it's hard to make friends. So then I would because you look at one article in Google, then it like recommends all these other articles. So every time an article would pop up, I'm like, oh, I'd read it. And then I'm like, oh man, that's great. Like, this is good information. So then I have a folder on my computer called like how to make friends or something. And then I would save all the articles in there because it's like good, because it's not just like why, it's not research on why you can't make friends, but it's also like ideas on how to make friends. So I thought, well, this is useful, like for me in the future, or if I have like people in my life who are like complaining that it's hard to make friends, I can send them all these links and then they can, maybe they're doing something wrong or whatever. Or again, if I ever decided to do a podcast on, why is it hard to make friends? I'd have all the research.
Or if you go back to school.
Or if I go back to school and have to write a paper on it. Correct.
There you go. So, hey, it's smart. It's smart because sometimes I go look for stuff that I saw before, but it's never, I can never find it. And there you have it all right there.
Right.
So in all your research, and obviously, we want to make sure that we put out some content that is factual and true, right, and the science behind it. That's one of the things that we've talked about. But in that research, from what I'm looking at, a lot of it there's no like scientific reason. It's not like we are scientifically this way. It's more of a like, are you willing to do what it takes?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it is scientific. Like when you look into it, the sociology and those kind of things, the psychology of it, obviously that's scientific stuff, but it's not like, well, if you were born here, right, you are predispositioned to not make friends.
Right. Right. And it's not like, hey, we can point to a specific gene that right says you aren't going to make friends. So really, when it comes to making friends as an adult, the reason why it's so hard, the older you get, the reason why it's so hard is because most adults just don't know how to make friends. Like, it's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's scary. And like getting to know somebody who's new and like letting them get to know you, that involves a whole lot of vulnerability let's just be honest, a lot of people don't like vulnerability. They don't want to put themselves out there. It takes a level of bravery to introduce yourself, to take that chance on a new friendship. And there's, it's a level of bravery that a lot of people just can't muster up within themselves. Like, it's like, I'd rather just not.
I'd rather sit at home. And I know that's one thing for me. Like, I'm kind of a homebody. Like, I want to be at home, right, and obviously I've got all the things going on in my life. And just to add like another layer of now I've got to, now I'm meeting somebody else. I want it to kind of happen organically or kind of in a,
right.
I lucked into this situation by meeting right this person. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to leave and go out of my way usually to make a new friend. And so it's not that scientifically I don't want to do it. It's just like you said, like it takes a lot right of effort with all those things to do that. And man, I have to say, if you're relying on friends in your adulthood to happen organically or out of luck, they're never going to happen. That's actually one of the things that they say is that most adults believe that friendships happen out of luck or they happen organically. Like you're out shopping at a grocery store or, flying somewhere and you sit next to somebody on a plane and then you two start up a conversation and then pretty soon you're best friends and traveling the world together. Well, the reality is that doesn't happen in relationships or friendships or otherwise. And I'm not going to say it doesn't happen because right there are those one-offs where somebody meets a friend sporadically. I once had a friend I met. She was a good friend of mine and we met each other because our kids were playing at the lake and we were sitting there and I was sitting on the bench. She was sitting on the shore. We right started talking and sparked up a friendship. So yeah, you mentioned luck and even I just mentioned that as well. Like I've been a believer of, especially since I got into business, that you create your own luck. And now that we're talking about that, if in business, like, I don't feel like it happens, but I feel like as a business owner that you create your own luck. Like, you just don't. I've had people say, "Oh, you're so lucky to be where you're at." Well, I'm doing this thing 15 years. You know what I mean? So when a client,
so did you put in a lot of hard work though?
Absolutely. I mean, a year in, I'm ready to quit. At a year in, I'm ready to stop, and I'm ready to give up. I had a few conversations with some people. We tweaked how, some of the things that we were doing, and so now when a client sends me 100 jobs in one day, I don't like look at that as luck. Whereas other people might, like, oh, you're lucky. Like other people in my profession, they may say, oh, you're so lucky because you got 100 jobs in a day. They know I've fostered these relationships over the past 15 years. And I'm starting, as we're here, I'm starting to see that, hey, you know what? I have to do the same thing, not only in business, but a lot of things in life, one being friendships.
Correct. And that's, for business, it's a lot easier, I think, because people, when you're in a business, especially in your own, you're in the business to make money.
Right.
And so that's a huge motivating factor. Well, with friendships, it's not, you're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for some sort of gain other than a, almost like a happiness to prevent loneliness. It's for your own well-being. And if other areas of your life are taking up, a lot of your time, you tend to neglect friendships first. Out of all the relationships you have, you tend to neglect your friendships first. And people have a hard time, extending themselves out for new friendships because, they're scary. Like, people can hurt you. They can reject you. They can harm you. And so you're really having to put yourself out. And
I've seen that in our life where we've put ourselves out, and Val more so than me. Like, Val's very open and and she'll just tell you how it is. Like, she'll tell everybody everything that we've been through. She'll just tell it all. And obviously she's very pointed in who she talks to on that.
Right.
And honestly, I feel like maybe it's like she's trying to be so friendly and help. And, if somebody asks a question, but maybe it's overload for the other person who is like, it's way too much for me. Like,
or it may not even be overload. It may just be too personal. It hits too close to home. They're uncomfortable with that. They're not going to share that back. So instead they're going to pull back because you're too close to home for them. Like, it just makes them uncomfortable. And, you mentioned luck, and they did a study, and one study found that people who believed friendships were based on luck were actually found to be lonelier 5 years down the road versus those who put the effort in. And when you think about friendships, when I think about, like, why is it so hard for me to make friends now? Because, it's always been super easy. Like, I have friends from my childhood. I have friends from teenage years. I have friends from my 20s, and I still talk to all of them pretty regularly, but I haven't had any like really new friends. I'd say Danielle is like my newest friend before the ones I met here. And I've known her for 8 to 10 years, but I've like not done. And that wasn't even one that I had to put a whole lot of effort in. It was like, she was my therapist, getting my hair done and chatting with her about everything. So that kind of really just happened like naturally. And we transitioned that out of the salon to like hanging out and doing things. And, but otherwise, I think like, it's so hard.
What is that like? Just real quick to touch on that. You talk about your hairstylist. She, you guys would therapize. Is that a word? I think I heard you say that before. I don't necessarily go to the salon.
Correct. You probably bick your own head.
I'm bald.
Straight razor.
I don't have to, yes. There we go.
Yeah.
Did that yesterday. So how does it get to the point where, obviously you're in the chair for an hour and a half. I don't know how long you're in there.
Right.
Like, how does it turn into like, cause if I'm going to the store, like, or if I'm going to have something done, like chances are I'm not going to open up my life to this dude that's, my hair or whatever.
Here's the thing. I don't know what it is about hairstylists. They are all like built-in therapists because my therapist I even called her my therapist, my hairstylist in Colleen, her name was Jennifer. I went to her for years. I don't know, you're trusting them with like your hair. So first of all, I used to have really long hair when I was in Texas. And so Jennifer would do my hair and she would highlight it and it would take 2 or 3 hours. And I'm trusting her with my appearance. And so it just, for me, I don't know, maybe it's like you trust them with your appearance. And so it's a little bit easier to let them in. But it took Danielle and I a while before we kind of took our friendship out of the salon. And it was kind of weird. And I was really like, I feel like I might have like invited her out a couple times and she was probably like, no, because, I don't want to, mix. But I was probably pretty persistent because I really liked her. And I think we probably went to a concert. That's how it started because we both love to go to concerts. So my guess is we probably ended up going to some concert because one of us had an extra ticket. We knew the other one liked that, and then that's kind of how it started. But I remember being really like feeling she would think I was like weird or something because I wanted to hang out with her outside of the hair salon.
And then what if you hang out with her and it's a bad situation and you have to go back and get your hair done?
Like, do I go back?
You have to dump her as your hair salon.
Right. At that point. Right. And I was like, I can't dump her. So even if it's bad, she's like, great. So we're just going to have to get over it.
Yeah.
But, it happened to work out where she and I, to this day, we have a great friendship. We text still, even though she, I only see her once whenever I go up to Utah, which for whatever reason, it's been a little bit lately. So I'll see her again in May. She'll cut my hair short. She'll, put some color in it and we'll go. But, just aside from like Danielle, I hadn't really met anybody recently who I would call friends. And so
you haven't met anybody. So what do you do? Like you said, you kind of go to bars, but you didn't really like that scene. Like how,
right.
Like for me, like I'm built in at church, right? So I have kind of some built-in friendships of we go to church together. It's kind of routine, I guess. Like there's people that I work with on Wednesdays and Sundays, and then I see them periodically throughout the week. But I am in suburbia with a family and with the church, with a church family as well. So somebody single, 42, single, new area, like, what do you do?
And it's even harder because I work from home. So there's times where I'll be honest, if I didn't have to go buy groceries, I wouldn't have to leave the house for weeks.
So you don't have a routine. Like I know that a lot of people will, meet friends at work or things like that.
And I don't have and the gym, I have a gym in my complex, so I don't have to pay somewhere to go to a gym. So it's like, not only that, I work from home. So I'm going to the gym probably at say 9 or 10 in the morning, while most other people are getting up and going super early because they've got to be to work somewhere. Right. So when I'm in there, there's one or two other people, and it's rarely the same one or two other people. So you see this one person and, it's just, you don't see it. There's no routine. And so, that's why I think for kids, it's so easy for kids to make friends because they're going to school every day, like your family. It's even easy for you because you've got this routine. Every Sunday, you're in church. Every Wednesday, you're there, with the youth. You're doing, coaching your kids' sports team. So there's some sort of built-in routine for you. But for me, it's not routine. Other than I know on Saturdays, I go to volleyball games with a lot of kids and parents. Friday nights.
And it's great, right? You missed a great one this past weekend, by the way.
Right. I know. As soon as it was over, your wife texted, was like, girl, you missed a good game.
It was a good one. I mean, my adrenaline's still up from that thing.
So I was talking to, I moved into my own place. I stayed with you for a little bit. Then I finally decided in January to get my own place.
So real quick, let's talk about that for a second. And I'm killing your ADHD right now because you're trying to tell a story and I keep cutting and hitting into different stories. But there are so many kids in our neighborhood that are friends with my kids. Like we were here, I think you were here, and all of a sudden I see kids walking across the yard and I'm like, oh, they must be here for Jace, right? And my little 8-year-old, and they knock on the door and my wife's like, oh, Jace can't play. And they're like, no, we just want some water. Or they're like, Jace is next door. They're like, we just want some water. Like that's how my house is, like, because we have all these friends. And if I'm not mistaken, one of my strategies to get you just to get your own place and not live with us was to have all my kids' friends over to the house.
I feel like you really liked when I lived here because I cooked a lot. You didn't have to cook. I know Val liked when I lived here because she was like, girl, I don't have to cook at all.
Yes, you did cook a lot. But, I'm just joking, obviously, about that. But my kids they have friends over
all the time.
Till midnight, you know what I mean? Because they're all neighborhood kids. And so they all have to be home at midnight. So they're here till 11:59 and then they run home and like cockroaches leaving the house. But like, when does that end? You know what I mean? Like where does that end in our lives? And I think, man, because I'm up till midnight, but you don't
have friends.
What is that different? What's the difference? You know what I mean? So you talk about routine, and these are kids that obviously they go to school with Jace, my 8-year-old. He'll come home from school and immediately, like we live across the street from a playground, and immediately he's there.
Right. And I don't know. And here's the thing that what I think is like the difference between kids and adults and friendships is that kids, first of all, they haven't had enough life experience for the most part. And again, I'm not going to, this is a very generalized statement, not saying this applies to everybody, but they don't have those anxieties around life and friendship that I might have, or you might have, or any adult might have, because for the most part, they've probably not been rejected, you know? And the reason they haven't been rejected by friends is because of their outlook on friendship. So they kids will seek out people who have similarities. So it's like, hey, I'm at lunch and this kid who's 2 seats down from me likes peanut butter and jelly, and that's my favorite sandwich too. So I bet we'd be good friends, or he likes the same cartoon, or we like to play football, you know? So they go and seek out similarities and people who are similar to them. And even if they find somebody who's not necessarily similar to them, if they can find that friend like something, then they're friends. Right. They will make that friendship happen. With adults, we seek out differences. And instead of thinking, why will that person like me? We think, why won't that person like me? Why won't we like them?
Here's a list of all the reasons that people don't like me. And so, you know, I think, you know, as I was reading through the notes and we were talking about it, one of the things you discussed was how what I think about myself, I project onto others to think that they think that about me.
Right. And when you go into a situation, let's say like you have a belief about yourself that you're annoying. For whatever reason, this is what you believe. So in your mind, you're going to go meet, you know, this new friend you have, or friends, or whatever the situation. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, what if they think that I'm annoying? Well, you already think that. So now you think they're going to think that. So you're going to go into this situation more guarded, and you're going to go into this situation almost standoffish a bit, because you know that this rejection is going to happen. And because you know that, and you're going into the situation with this mindset, there's a greater chance that they're probably not going to like you. Right, and it's not because of anything you've done other than you closed yourself off because you believed they would think about you what you thought about yourself.
Yeah. And what's crazy is one thing I learned one time in having to deal with people, talk with people, that kind of thing, is people are not thinking about you. They're thinking about what you're thinking about them.
Exactly. That's it. So you're going in.
So if you and I are standing, and we've never met, and I'm standing there talking to you, I'm thinking like, oh man, what does she think about me?
Right.
And you're over on the other side thinking, oh man, what is he thinking about me?
That's it.
And in reality, so I started going into the situation of just being like, let me get interested in them. I don't care what they think about me. I don't know this person. So if I walk into and talk to this person and we talk and then we never talk again, my life did not change. It didn't get worse. They weren't my friend before. They're not my friend after. So my life didn't change. But we think, you know, as humans, as adults, we think, oh, that person's not my friend. My life just got worse. No, they weren't your friend before. And they're not your friend after. It didn't get worse. Like there's 7 billion other people in this world, you know?
Hey, what's up, my channel? Please hit the drop a like and hit the subscribe button. Looking for my first subscriber. Can't subscribe myself. Can't do that for some reason. I don't know why. Wish you could.